Okay, we are ready to go. Zogt the Heilige Gemara. Oh, I'm missing one thing. I'm missing my pointer. I got to talk to the point, so I had to get my pointer. Okay, so Zogt the Heilige Gemara. We are 3 lines before the wide lines. Tanan. Okay. Ish Mekadesh Espitoi Keshehinayim. We learned earlier in the Mishnah that a man has the right to be Mekadesh his wife, to be Mekadesh his daughter, to accept Kiddushin for his daughter when she's a Naira. Boy Uvitzluchai. He could accept the Kiddushin on her behalf, or he can appoint a Shliach to accept the Kiddushin for her. So we make a deal. Boy Uvishluchayin. He could be Makabel Kiddushin. His Shliach could be Makabel Kiddushin, but Bo Uvishluchaloi. She wouldn't be able to. Zogt Rashi. What do we want to prove from here? Alma Naira Sheyesh La'av Loi Mekacha. You see that a Naira who has a father cannot be Makabel Kiddushin for herself. That's the machlokes that we've been talking about until now. And Rashi points out very important. At this point, we're assuming this is not only Rabbi Yehuda, but it also is consistent with the Shita of the Rabbana. If you remember, we had a machlokes yesterday. It's only Rabbi Yochanan who said that the Rabbanan agreed to Rish Lakish by Kedushin, that she cannot accept her own Kedushin. But Rish Lakish learned, Kamachlokes begershin, Kach machlokes bekedushin, and therefore the Rabbanan holds that a Naira can accept her own Kedushin. So I was to the Rish Lakish. It's going to be an upslug to Rish Lakish. Amalach Rish Lakish, Hanami Rabbi Yehuda. Yesterday he still time that Bryce like Rabbi Yehuda. He's going to show on this mission like Rabbi Yehuda as well, because Rabbi Yehuda holds that Bein Bagershin, Bein Bakedushin, there's only one yad, and that is the yad of the father, and the daughter has no ability to accept her own Kedushin. You cannot say that this Bryce is going according to Rabbi Yehuda, because this same Tana in this same Bryce adds another piece of information that we know is consistent with Reb Shimon. What happened was he had a whole bunch of dates, and we don't know if any of them are worth more than a Shava Pruta. Combined, they're definitely worth more than a Shava Pruta, but each one individually are not. And he went over to a woman and he said, Hiskachali b'tamarazu. And then after that, a second later, he says Hiskachali b'tamarazu. And then again, Hiskachali b'tamarazu. We don't look at that like it's one big Kedushin, and therefore we can add up the value of all the dates. No. Each date individually has to be enough, or not each one, but at least one of those dates that he wanted to be Mekadosher with has to be worth the Shava Pruta. Because his wording in order to say that you don't look at it like one big Maisa, his wording has to specifically separate each date from one another. Thank you so much. Hiskachili bezu. Hiskachili bezu. He had to keep on repeating Hiskachili bezu. Where in the world do you see this concept that unless you say Hiskachili bezu, a separate Hiskachili bezu each tomorrow, otherwise we assume what he means is one big Kedushin with all the dates. Where do we get this from? From Minan Man Tana Hiskachi. Who is the Tana that tells us that in order to say each Kedushin is a separate Kedushin, it's not one big Kedushin, he had to have spoken out Hiskachili bezu. Because technically what he could have said, Hiskachili bezu, ubezu, ubezu. Why doesn't that make it a separate Kedushin? Only if you repeated the word Hiskachili would that make it into a separate Kedushin. You know where we learn it from? From a place that's completely different halacha than Kedushin. We actually learn it from the Parsha of Hasham Me'ilos. Oh, it's gewaltig. Perfect. Thank you. It's hot. Oh, it's hot. It's geschmack. Yeah. Oh, it's gewaltig. Mantan is skachi. But my Rabbi Reb Shimon. There's a halacha called Hasham Gezelos. Every day, for abundance, we list off the different Hashamos. Hasham Gezelos is an oshad that's brought if Reuven mon Shimon man, and he tells Shimon, you owe me money either because I lent you money, you have to pay it back, or you have a pekadon of mine, or you found something that belongs to me. Whatever it is, I'm making a claim that you're holding on to my property. And Shimon denies it. Shimon said, no such thing. I don't have your property. They've had your property. I don't know what you're talking about. And then Shimon makes a shvuah. I swear that I don't have any of your property. And then he turns out that he's a liar. So the halacha is he has to pay back Karen v'chaymish. He has to pay back what he stole plus an additional 20%. And then he brings a korban hasham me'ilus. Well, what happens if 5 people approach Shimon and say, you have my watch, you have my urn, you have my watch, you have this, right? 5 people come over to him, and he says, I swear to all of you. The halacha is he only brings one hasham gezelos. But what if he says, I swear to you, and I swear to you, and I swear to you? So he made a separate shavua for each person. Only there does he bring a separate korban for each gzela. And let's see the brayso inside, because there's many shittas about this. He will not be mechuyev 5 hashamos unless he tells each plaintiff, I swear to you, I'm making a shvuah to you, I'm making a shvuah to you. Only then that we consider it 5 shvuahs, that will force him to bring 5 korbanos. If he just said, I swear to all of you, that's 1 shvuah, and he only brings 1 set of hashamilas. So Zok to Gemara, so clearly the Mishnah that says Ha'imr Lisha Skachli is Reb Shimon. So how could you tell me that it's going according to Reb Yehuda? Zok to Gemara, that's not a problem. I can get out of that one easily. Of course it's Reb Yehuda. But who said Reb Yehuda doesn't agree with Reb Shimon? Reb Shimon. This is the sheet of Reb Yehuda, who holds that a Titana or a Naira cannot accept their own Kiddushin. And it happens to be that this Rabbi Yehuda happens to agree with that Rabbi Shimon, that unless he said his kachali separately for each tomorrow, we look at it like it's one bikadu. For the Gemara, that's a really good shot, except it's not true. We know Rabbi Yehuda does not agree with Rabbi Shimon. Does Rabbi Yehuda agree to Rabbi Shimon? But Tanya, we're going to quote now a brayso that has many different options of how this works, and we'll see Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with Rabbi Shimon. Zehaklal, this is the rule. Kalal, if he wrapped all 5 shvus into one, einay chayiv alachas. You're only chayiv 1 korban. Parat, if he itemized, and Rashi says it's not for here, but if we learn the sugi over there, the Gemara will explain precisely what this itemization is that we're quoting here from a bear. Then chayiv l'chalachas achas divrei Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Now, this is the sheet that we're looking for. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Shavua, loy loch, chayiv al chalachas v'achas. You don't have to repeat the word Shavua each time, like we just quoted from Rabbi Shimon. He could just say, I swear that I didn't take from you, and I don't have from you, and I don't have from you. But he didn't have to say a Shavua each time. So clearly, this brayso or this Mishnah that we quoted a moment ago cannot be the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, loy loch, shavua. So what Rabbi Eliezer adds is, it's not enough to say a shavua at the beginning, loy loch. You have to shavua at the beginning and at the end. Shavua, loy loch, shavua. If you say shavua at the beginning and shavua at the end, then we'll say chayiv al kolachas. But Rabbi Shimon Omer, lo'olam einei chayiv, at sheyomer shavua lekol echad v'echad. So now we're stuck. Who is this brayso going like? Because if it's going according to the Rabbanon, we have a massive problem, because the brayso says beferish that she couldn't do it. She couldn't be Kabul Kiddushin. And of course, Rish Lakish learns in the Chachamim that by Kiddushin, she could. Zok to Gemara. Of course, Rish Lakish learns Kabachloikis Begershin Kach Machloikis Bekedushin, that according to the Rabbanon, she could. Zok to Gemara, Elakula Reb Shimoni. So let's say the whole brayso earlier is Reb Shimon talking. Reb Shimon never expressed what he holds the Gabi the Machloikis, the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda, about if she could be Mekabel or on Kedusha. So let's say Reb Shimon holds like Rabbi Yehuda. So instead of saying it's Rabbi Yehuda and in one part he holds like Reb Shimon, we'll say it's Reb Shimon and in one part he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. And this time he can't get us because Reb Shimon didn't express an opinion specifically on this anywhere, so we could blame this on him. Okay, Zok ahead of the Gemara. Rav Asi loy ol lebei midrash. One day, Rav Asi didn't show up to shir. And the yeshiva where Rabbi Asi learned didn't live stream all of their shiurim on YouTube. So the only way that he would be able to get the information that he missed would be to ask somebody who was there. So it was probably the day after Yom Kippur or something, or the day after Simchas Torah, or the day after Purim, because asked the Rab Zera, he meant Rab Zera, and he asked him, "My Omer Ha'idna Beimidrata." What was the discussion in the Beis Medrash today? I guess he met him in the afternoon. Amalei Afanalei Ayel. I didn't make it either, but Rav Avin Huda Ayel. I know Rav Avin made it this year because he told me over what was discussed. But he said, "Chavrusa Kula Ki Rabbi Yochanan." They had a discussion about the Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. So they were discussing specifically what do the Rabbanan hold by Kiddushin. Can a Nair accept her own Kiddushin or not? Rabbi Yochanan holds she could not, and Rish Lakish holds she could, because Rish Lakish holds Kamachloikis Begershon, Kachmachloikis Bekedushin. V'tzavach Rish Lakish ki kruchya, and Rish Lakish was screaming like a rooster. But v'yotzav ha'isa, how could you say that there's a difference in halacha between Gershon and Kedushin? What about v'yotzav ha'isa? And you know what? Leka ashkach bei. No one listened to a word of what he was saying. So my Rebbe Rav Mendel once was watching, Rav Mendel Kaplan Zechatzat the Kodesh L'Rocha, once was watching two Bachim screaming and learning. So Rav Mendel said, Divrei Chachamim v'nachas nishmoim. V'stoma denkt tzvach nit as I could, and to do after say schreien.
You know, one thing I can't, you're going to be excited. How could you do such things?
But Lamasa, no one listened to him. No one listened to Rish Lakish. No one listened to Rish Lakish. I Lamasa is a good time. That's maybe also right. So there are Rishonim who speak out. I didn't see them on the daf, but Rabbi Raza spoke it out. There are Rishonim that speak out. Vice the choice that the Yotz of the Ois is a gewalt hekesh only when you don't have the Dvar of Muchachim from the Torah that teach us otherwise. So here there must have been rayas from the Torah otherwise that only the father has the yad and not. So the Yotz of Ois is not absolute. Amalei Rab Avin Bar Samcha. Amalei Rab Avin Bar Samcha. Who could we rely on Rab Avin that what he's repeating to us that occurred in the Beis Medrash was accurate? Now it doesn't seem like the question is if he's a liar. Let's see what Rashi says. Uvaki ata Rab Avin zeh. Are you sure that you know this Rab Avin well? She is lismach al devarab shemedaktik b'shmuas hashenim ashkach. First of all, he listens and he's accurate in what he reports, and B is he doesn't forget. He has clarity. Are you sure that we could rely on this? Can we take this to the bank? I'm sure like that. It's like a fisherman who has a frying pan right there in his boat, and he pulls the fish up and puts it right into the frying pan. So it's fresh. Everything's fresh to him. And there are those who learn Yama and Tigni. Tosus brings up shot that there are two cities. Can you imagine if you have a city called Fish right next to a city called Frying Pan? So fish and the frying pan were very close together. So therefore, a person couldn't say something in one city and then deny it in the other city because the word will get over pretty quickly what he said. So interesting enough, this Yamal Tigni is used halacha sometimes, whether or not you can rely on something. And therefore, the Marsham Mibrajan, who was the grandfather of Rabbi Shalom Shadran, he wrote a tshuva that says, although in the times of the Gemara, unless two cities were side by side, we didn't treat it like Yamal Tigni. Nowadays that we're so advanced and sophisticated that we have the Rakevas HaBarzel, we have a train, we have the Doar. Now even cities that are very far away are considered Yamal Tigni. So the Shar Mamitzuim Balacha says, Ebazeh, today, a nanosecond is how long it takes to get anything anywhere around the world because of communications. And therefore, every place in the world is considered like Yama Latigni, which means you could rely on someone saying something over. Let's say Rabbi Yashav Zatzal set up Sak. You could rely on someone who says over Rabbi Yashav's Sak. You know why? Because we can easily discredit him because it takes a nanosecond to find out what he said or what anyone else said, because information is so easily exchangeable now. So tomorrow,
everybody because we could verify.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the person has to be a person who you could trust, but a person that's trustworthy who wouldn't want to be. There's some people who don't care if you catch them on a lot. Like for instance, me. I just have to make a point. I don't like when you mix facts into my narrative. But someone who's known not to modify things, him you could trust because he's not going to say something that's not completely accurate. Exactly. Amar in Kiminyama Latigni. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Ana Loy Rav Avin bar Abchia, or Loy Rav Avin bar Kahana. I didn't hear which Rav Avin it was. Was it Rav Avin bar Chia or was it Rav Avin bar Kahana? I didn't hear El Rav Avin Stam. So I don't really know exactly who this person is that you're quoting. Lamai Nafkamina. What's the difference if you knew exactly who it was or not? If you find that he said something contradictory, if you don't know which person it is, you can't ask a contradiction because it could have been a different person. Gewaltig. Zog to Gemara. Boy minei Rabba mi Rav Nachman. Rabba asked Rav Nachman a shaila, turning now on to Daf Mem Daled Amud Beis. Naira, Mahu Ketasa Shliach the Kabul Gita Biyad Baila. So Rashi has to give us a little bit of back. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no discussion. She cannot be Makabel her own get. But according to the Rabbanan, who hold that a Naira can be Makabel her own get, that she make a Shliach. Ma'u Shetasa Achar Shliach Lakabel Askita B'chayavil. Does she also have such a koyach in it that she can also make a Shliach to be Makabel? What's the Shiloh? Naira Ma'u Shetasa Shliach Lakabel Gita B'yad Baila. Do you say Kiyad Aviyah Damya? She's mamish like the hand of her father. And as Rashi says, Ami Rabbanan, the Atam Mikabelas, my Srilu. What is the lomdus? What is the mechanics of how it works? Do we say Liyad Aviyah Medamula? Do we consider her the hand of her father? Or Lechotzer Aviyah Medamula? Or is she like the Chotzer of her father? Or the Chotzer Aviyah Dami? Kiyad Aviyah Dami, Ma Aviyah Mash Shliach. Just like her father could appoint a Shliach to be mekabelet for himself, afinami mash shliach, so too she could make a shliach to be mekabelet. Oy dilma kechotzer aviyadamya. She's merely like the chotzer of her father. Her father's chotzer can't be the man shliach. It has to be in the chotzer. The adamat yigit liyada loy migrish. So I just want to pause for a second because this is very, very fair. Because it's very obvious from Rashi that she's second fiddle. She's only an accessory of the father, right? The Ami Rabbanan Rashi says that he atzmi kabelas my srila liyadavi damila lechatzavi. Why isn't she her own person? Maybe she's also an independent owner. Rashi doesn't even have such a hamamim. She's for sure only the whole shaila that even according to the Rabbanan that a daughter can accept her get. Even according to the Rabbanan, it's only as an extension of her father. But there's only one real owner. Why is this very fair? Because the Stipler asks a kasha on this Gemara from Gittin Daf Chof Aleph, where the Gemara said, the Gemara was looking for Shlichus Bal Karcha. The Gemara said, you want an example of Shlichus Bal Karcha? That a father could be Mekabel a get on behalf of his daughter, and that's against his will, because Gittin, the husband can give the father a get on behalf of his daughter against his will, which is mashma that she's the main player, and he's the Shliach. Break the Stipler, what is it? Zok the Stipler, there's two components to have a Kiddushin. There's the Choshen Mishpadik Kinyan, the Momonistic Kinyan, the father gets the Kesef Kiddushin, but there's also the Yordeitic Kinyan. This woman becomes an Eshes. She becomes usher to the whole world. That's on her, that's not on him. Zok the Stipler, there's two components. In order for any get to work, both components have to be satisfied. So here the Shaila is, since for the Momonistic component, her father's the Baldovar, what level of involvement does she have? The involvement of a yad or the involvement of the shliach? Masha again over there, the discussion was the father is going to be her shliach, lagabi the Yeridea portion, and the Stipler writes, I'm just throwing this word. I think I'm writing this just to be ma'ir, this Indian, but yesh lepalpul. There's a lot of Rosh Yeshivas could make a lot of fodder out of this. You can have a whole zman with of shiurim discussing this, but we just want to create awareness so that when our sons come home from Yeshivah, tell us over a voice, I can this Stipler. So even though he didn't look at the Stipler, but at least our kids, when you send your daughter to Bishakif, no matter how big of a Talmud Chacham you are, they're going to come home thinking you're a Grab Amoritz. Because the Rebbeim asked them Shilas that they're supposed to get answers to over Shabbos, Shilas that only the biggest Bekim in Tanakh could possibly know the answers to. So my daughter used to be convinced that I'm a Grab Amoritz. She's probably right, because I never ever had any answers to the extra credit questions that Rabbi Nustat used to send out. My saving grace was Rabbi Nustat used to come to Koil Dirshu. So I would right away ask him for the answer in the morning and then tell it to my daughter. Finished, I would be finished. But your sons, at least you can say you know this type. Okay. Zog to Gemara weiter. I do look at Chatzar Rabbi Yadam. Adamati Yitl Yada Loy Migisha. Frag to Gemara. Umi Misaf Kalela Rava. Huh? Did Rava actually have such a shiloh? I'll prove to you that Rava must learn that she's not a chotzer, because the Amar Rava, Kasav get v'nosnoi v'yarab. What if a husband wanted to give his wife a get, and he did, instead of handing the get to his wife had an evet. A woman can acquire the chasam that her husband doesn't have reshus in, and this evet was sleeping. Now, one of the things of chotzer is it has to be a chotzer mishameres, and it can't be a chotzer mishameres. It has to be a chotzer mishameres taldas haba. The person who owns the field, who's been koina, he has to be the one watching the field. Like if it's a regular field, he built a fence. He's standing there. He's creating the shmira. By an evet, if an evet's awake, an evet has its own mind, so you can't be watching the evet. But here the evet was sleeping. Of get the nasavi an abda yashin, and the Rishonim add that he was tied up as well, so he couldn't be a chotzer malachas. Umishamarta, and she's watching him. So this is called a chotzer mishumer al das baila, al das her wife, al das the wife who owns the evet. A raise a get, it would be a good get, which means he doesn't have to put it into her hand; he could put it into her chotzer. Near, if the evet is awake, ain't a get. Frank the Gemara, near amai on you get. Why is it not a good get if the evet is awake? The Havilah, chotzer mishtamers shaloi l'daita, because the evet has his own independent thoughts, so it's not considered that it's a chotzer mishtamers l'daita. V'sol kedaita kechatzar avi adam. If her only access to being kabel the get is she's acting as the chotzer of her father, kimata gita liyada nami loitig. Even if the get eventually reaches her hand, she shouldn't be megureshes. You know why? The havala chotzer hamishtamers shaloi l'dasavia. When forget shlichus now, if she receives the get, if she's acting as a chotzer, she's not mishtamers l'dasavia. She has her own das. She's an adult. She's an ira, right? So how can she act as a chotzer? The same way a live eved, an awake eved, can act as a chotzer. How could a woke woman act as a chotzer?
What's some of them have she should be a chutz if she's the reason Avda, because Avda is Avda in the character Avda. Since Avda in the
So you ask Ashal in Lomdis how
and she's a person by himself. Why shouldn't she be a shliach? Why she should work like a chutz?
the shal is not shlich. The shal is either chutzer or yad. Shlich is not a.
He doesn't like the analogy.
Shlich like that.
For what's a chutzer? I able to do a reason for what's as a chutzer because he's not a person, and Avdik Makar. So
I hear. Again, there's a lot of lomda we could do what together in what prat we're treating it like a chutzer. So I'm sure there's so you're being more a very good child, and we need Yeshivah Shurim to explain it. I don't have the answer. It's a very good child.
She's a doyle, and she right.
So the Gemara ends up remaining with Chaim's time. There's no way she could be a chutzer. She's for sure acting as a yad. Or when she's acting as a yad, what if it's told that she shouldn't be able to appoint a shliach? Is she mamish like the yad of the father, of her father? So she has such control that she would even make a shliach. Or maybe she doesn't have such control. So again, the shaila is on degrees of how much of a balabul she is. That's really what the shaila is. So instead of using the word shliach, we're going to use, she's still a yad, but she doesn't have all the control of a normal yad. Amalei, so after all this lomdaving, who asked the who the shaila asked to? The shaila was asked to Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman didn't have any qualms about it. He answered no problem. Ain't no shliach. Forget it. You can't make a shliach. He doesn't have such a koyach. He said very clearly. Ain't no shliach. Fact the Gemara Eiseh. Now the Gemara is going to ask a kasha. Ain't no shliach. We'll see from the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara is not going to ask a kasha on Rav Nachman to prove that she could make a shliach.
What's the bias then? There's no bias.
Motim kibbur two minutes on bias. Ain't no, because it's lashon keva. Ain't no shliach. Eiseh fact the Gemara. Eiseh fact the Gemara. Ketana sha'amra hiskabel ligiti. A ketana who said hiskabel ligiti. A ketana who was mimana a shliach to be mekabel a get. Ain't no get. It won't be a get. Achi yigeh get liyado. Why? Because we know a ketana cannot make a shliach. Ha naira. Let's be medayik from the brisa. The brisa just stuff because a ketana can't make a shliach. Ha naira writes a get. So you have an often a raya that a naira could make a shliach to be mekabel a get. It's a shver on Reb Nachman who said she can't. Zok to Gemara. That brisa is speaking where the girl didn't have a father. When the girl doesn't have a father, then she's talking responsible fully for her own. The naira. The Tanya didn't have a av, and the naira didn't have. In both the case that the brisa is talking about ein la'av, even though it's ein la'av, she still can't be makabel a get for herself, and you cannot make a diak. And if you make a diak that the naira under the same circumstances would be able to make a shliach, that would be true because the rishus of her father is no longer.
How about some got learned that get if we don't have a shliach, the get doesn't have to go from the husband right to the woman.
Okay, let's. I want to focus on this. It's going to be a little bit of a complicated catch on Rav Nachman, so I want to focus on this. I don't want to go off on a tangent. Zoktim Habit the Katani Seifa. The Seifa of this brisa adds on. And it says, Im Omer Lo Avia, I believe the Bach sticks in an Aleph, Im Omer Loi Avia, Im Omer Loi, very important. If the father spoke to the Shliach himself, Im Omer Loi Avia, if the father spoke to the Shliach, and he said, say the Kabul get Labiti, please be my Shliach LeKabbalah, then what happens if the Baal gives the get to this Shliach LeKabbalah that the father appointed, and after he gave it to the Shliach, before the shliach brought it back home, he doesn't even have to bring it back home. The moment the shliach is makabel that get, the get is chal, and therefore the get was chal the moment the shliach lekabbalah received it. The baal cannot be chayzer. So clearly, we're speaking about a father here, because in the same brayta we're continuing with an example when the father took hungarif and then he spoke to the shliach. Machlal dereisha with the yesh la'avaskina. So once again, you have a raya that a naira, even though she has a father, could be mamana shliach. We have to add information into the price. Ketana sha'amar eskabaligiti, a ketana who appoints a shliach, eino get achi agia get liyada, because she cannot make a shliach. Her naira raise a get, but under the same circumstances, a naira can make a shliach. All this is only if there's no father. That's when there's no possibility of shlichus for a ketana. Because even though a ketana can receive a get bal karcha, but a ketana can never make a shliach. Avol yesh la'av, if this ketana has a father, the Amar Aviyah, and the father told the shliach, say v'kabei lebiti gita, there the shliach would work, and therefore the rights of bal lachsar v'yachsar, because the moment the get was in the hands of the shliach l'kabbalah, the get is chal, even if the get gets destroyed and it never reaches the hands of the father of the daughter, the chalois occurs when the shliach, the Kabbalah, receives it.
What's the chiddush of this part?
What's the chiddush of which part? I think the chiddush is mainly that a ketana cannot make a shliach, but the hechetim for the ketana to make a shliach or for shliach to occur by a ketana is if the father did. Okay, zok the Gemara weiter. Itmar ketana sheniskacha to learn the asavi. You have a ketana who normally the father has to be Mekabel her Kiddushin for her. She went and was Mekabel Kiddushin without her father. So it's not really a good Kiddushin, right? if we're working according to the Rabban, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's not a good Kiddushin, right? What is the halacha with such a girl? Omer Shmuel, nevertheless, tzricha get, utzricha miyun. She needs double. She needs a get and miyun. Now the problem over here is miyun is only relevant by a Kiddushin D'Rabbanan. For instance, a girl who's a Yosema who gets married off. The Rabbanan said that we allow marriage. Why? So that she shouldn't be hefker. So it's only D'Rabbanan. Because it's only D'Rabbanan, at any point until she becomes a gadol, she can say, you know what? I've had enough of this. I don't want anymore. Why? Which was a shaykhas da to miyun. And why is it a get? It's shalom dasaviyah. Omar Karner. So Karner said, Devarim Begav. There's something inside or beneath the surface that we got to open up because something doesn't make sense over here. We need to understand what's happening. Im get lama miyun. If you need a get, that means it's a kedusha deraisa. So how in the world would miyun be relevant? And the miyun, if you need miyun, that means it's you're declaring that it's not a good kedushin. So lama get. Why would I need a get?
Also, do the father's not live? It's in shkamiyun when the father.
No, we're talking about where the father's living.
Miyun only works.
So that's the question. That's exactly the question. Amr lay, so they told him, to go all the way to Nahardah to question Shmuel might be a trip. But you don't have to go so far, because we know that there's a Talmud of Shmuel by the name of Mar Ukva, and he lives close by in Kifri. Let's go ask him. Mar Ukva, Ubeidini. Mar Ukva is based in Bikfari or Bekifri. I don't know how to pronounce the name of the city. Is it Toronto or is it Toronto? Kafri. Go ask him. Anyway, they didn't. For some reason, they didn't. And they asked. They asked the village of village. If you could have a village named Frying Pan and a village named Trout, you can have an avenue of Trout. So what did they do? They for some reason they asked Rav. Rav and Shmuel were about Proktos. They asked Rav. But what they did, a patent, Rashi says, is they were afraid if they give Rav the information, Shmuel said tzricha miyun, and they said that Karen had a question on it, so automatically he would side with Shmuel. So they flipped it. They told Rav that Karen said tzricha get tzricha miyun, and Shmuel asked the kash. Afchua shadru l'kamei de Rav. Amar, he said, Amar l'alakim, I make a shvua. Avada tzricha get v'tzricha miyun. In other words, he had intellectual honesty. He sided with the emes halacha. Avada, he didn't side. He didn't side with Shmuel. However, the Rishonim asked, how are you talking? Was there a havamina that Rav would bastardize his psak halacha because of his body? Not trying such as that. So there are those Rishonim who say they didn't do it on purpose. They did it by mistake. They confused the message. That was one shot. Okay. Let's wait till 6:50. And then the other pshat in the Rishonim, there's another pshat in the Rishonim that I forgot what it was. I forgot. Okay. Zok to Gemara, v'chos leil zari da Abba bar Abba. Abba bar Abba, I believe, was the father of Shmuel, right? Abba bar Abba avu de Shmuel Abba, Rashi says, right? No, because what Shmuel is saying is wrong. The way it was quoted to him. The name of Haki that he should say such a thing. The time of I. Okay, so Lamai said, what is the reason? Why would you need both a get and miyun? Amar Rav Acha Vika, tzricha get. You know why? Shema nisratza ha'av b'kedusha. Maybe the father was masking. Yes, he was makabel on kedusha, and maybe the father was masking. This little harmless line blows up Shas. What do you mean Shema nisratza ha'av? He's not even there. She was makabel kedusha. So if he wants, how does that help if he wants?
But
he didn't know anything about it. He did not. Truma, I could say. So let's see Rashi. Zokt Rashi. Let me see if I can find the Rashi. No, it doesn't say it over here. Where does Rashi say it? Rashi says it's some over here. I'll have to find Rashi. Rashi says, here it is. That's going to be a little bit later in the Gemara. It's speaking where the father knew about it. If she's not met a boy and was Kabbalah Kedushin, how could you possibly say that the father was masking? So the Gemara later on says that it's speaking where the father knew about the shidduch. They were talking about a shidduch already. When they're in the middle of the shidduch, the Kabbalah's kedushin itself was without her father. So Hadam Tricha get is Kishidach Balavia Kaidim Kedushin, which an other Trugade shidduch. The Ikal Swukre Shemanis Ratza Kishashama. Maybe when he heard the kedushin happened on Monday, Tuesday he found out that this happened, that his daughter was Makabal kedushin. V'havalu kedushin lemafreya. This is magic. How does that work? So it'll have to be like a reyat mikudeshesli kisha yaskim avicha, and it'll be chal on the title. It'll be chal later when the father knows about it.
Not really Leila Das.
Rashi says it's lemafreya. The Ritva says it's chal not chal lemafreya. It's only chal when the father finds out about it. Rashi saying it's chal even before the father finds out about it, on the night that he finds out about it later. But there are those who say, who try to learn that no, it's only negay if the father was there. The father was there, and he had to witness it. And I guess he didn't say anything if he was maskim or not. So there's a big shiloh of how this works. Okay, Zok Gemara, that's why you need to get. There might be an actual kedushin deraisa. Shrichamion shamalon nisratzah kedushin. Let the father was not maskim to the kedushin. So what is it now? It's nothing, right? It's nothing. She doesn't need mion. But the problem is we're going to give her a get, right? If we're going to give her a get, then everybody will think that she was legit married to this man, right? So let's say this man goes and makes a kedushin on her sister. Normally, once you marry a woman, even if you divorce her, you cannot marry her sister. As long as she's alive, you cannot marry her sister. But this guy divorced her, then he's going to go make a kedushin on her sister, and he's not going to give the sister a get because the kedushin wasn't tarfus. But in actuality, he was never married to the first one. So in order to show that, yes, maybe there is a kedushin over here, therefore they said there should be miyunis. Shemaloy nisrat kedushin. The yomer people are mistakenly going to say kedushin toifsim b'chaisa. He'll make kedushin on the sister, and he'll make a kedushin on the sister, and there won't be anything. And really, the sister is a neshashit. Once there's miyun, now people say, oh, if there's miyun over here, that means maybe I was never married to the first sister. Maybe my kedushin is good for the second sister. Amar Nachman, this whole psak that we say that you need a get is only if the father knew about this boy before. Because if not, then even Shmuel would not have held that you need a get. Ula Amar, afilu min en tzrich. Ula said you don't need a get and you don't need min, you need nothing at all. Frek the Gemara, afal gab de shitchu. Are you going to tell me that Ula is arguing on Shmuel, even when the father knew about it and the father was a willing participant? Dr. Mara, no, I'm not saying that. If you learn that Shmuel only said as halacha sheshitchu, Ula wouldn't have argued. But on the tzad, not like Reb Nachman, if you learn that Shmuel said even lo shitchu needs a get, there Ula argues. Ikad Amri, Omar Ula, Ktanish and Eskach Shalol Dasavia. Ula made this comment, but he wasn't commenting on Shmuel. He was just making a standalone comment. And he said, "Ketanish and Eskat Shaloi Dasavia, Afilu Miun Ein Esricha, Miun is not required." And that to Rashi would be Afal Pisha Shitchu, because that's not relevant to the machlokes of Shmuel, who wasn't even talking about it. Mazu Rav Kahan. So Rav Kahan has a cast. V'chulam imesu oiminu onisgarshu oishinimtzu islandness torisei mutaris. The halacha is if a man is married to a woman and he dies without children, his brother does evil. But what if his wife was usher to his brother? For instance, there's 15 types of women that could be a right that would be usher to the brother. Let's focus on Bitoy. So let's say Reuven marries Shimon's daughter, and Reuven dies. Of course, Shimon cannot do evil because this Yavama is his own daughter. It's Chayav Koros. What if Reuven married Shimon's daughter and he was married to another woman as well? And Reuven dies. Not only can Shimon not make Yibam on his daughter, but he can't even make Yibam on his daughter's tzara, because there's a halacha that the Chamesh Eser Rayis are poitras tzarasein, right? So if you can't do Yibam on the erva, you can't do Yibam on this entire situation over here. What if before Reuven died, his wife died, Shimon's daughter died. So by the time Reuben died, the erva wasn't around anymore. So if that happened, there was no problem. Then you could do evil. So v'chulon imesu, if the erva died before Reuven died, or it was a Kiddushin Derabanan and they made miyun, or nisgarshu, or Reuven divorced his niece before he died, or shenimtu islanders, or it turns out they were islands, so the Kiddushin is batalam afreya. So kum techais, at the time of Reuven's death, the only women that fell to Yibam were non-ervots, Sarasein mutars. So from the Mishnah's case, it's clear that you can have a possibility of a woman, of a daughter making meal. You can have a situation where a daughter of a live brother made meal. Because if we're discussing Yibam over here, it must be Shimon's alive. If Shimon's not alive, that's an Yibam. So Shimon must be alive, yet his daughter is making meal. How is it possible for a girl who has a father to make meal? Isn't the only time you need meal in a case where she's marrying herself off, or her brothers or her mother are marrying her off? So the Kitcha man who married this girl off, Ilema the Kitcha Avia, if her father married her off, Bimin Sagila, meal would be enough. Get Ma'al Yabot. Elalav the Kacha Ihinavsha. She must have accepted Kiddushin for herself. Vikatani, and the Mishnah says the boy meal says I mean. So you have a raya that you need meal. You have a raya that you need meal. Vikatani the boy meal.
Isn't the father only once being Makabel?
That's a very beautiful. So you think once he was Makabel for the first time, how could he be Makabel for her again? Beautiful kasha. The Gemara is about to ask that kasha. So Zog to Gemara, Vikatani the boy meal. It says that you need meal. Zog to Gemara, who moisav law, who mafarik law. He asked the kasha and he answered. She was a Yisayma b'chayav because her father had already married off and made her to Nesua, but she's still a Tana. So now she could marry herself off with Rabbanan. She could marry herself off with Rabbanan, and that's how it would be relevant to me.
That can't play a role in our brisa because then Dasavi is irrelevant almost in the second time, right?
Once she's a Nesua, she's out of her father's domain. This whole Shaila is only a Naira Hamu if she could be Makabel her own good. Because once she's in Nesua, she's completely out of her father's domain.
Let's say the Chaim said, so the father, first time he married her off, but only in Averson.
No, that's a different story.
Does he have a second kick at the can?
Yes, he does. If he only made Averson. Well, yes and no. So far, yes. In the next line of the Gemara, there'll be a no. A man cannot sell his daughter as an Amavriya to Kroivim. Why? Because they won't be able to make Yud. And it has to be royally Yud. It doesn't have to be. It says sometimes you could sell her even only as an Amma. You don't have to be able to make Yud. But for Shavin, everybody agrees that you couldn't marry her off to Chayve Lavin. This Gemara should be very familiar to us. How could the father sell? How could the father sell as an Amma Avriya and Almana? That means he must have married her off even. After he even makes her an Arusa, so that's what you're referring to. After he marries her off, he can no longer. Remember, we had the drush of once he married her off, he could no longer have the right to sell her as an Amma. So how did this happen? Elalav, it must be the Kaddish Ihinavsha. She married herself off before she became an Almana, but now the father can still sell her because the father never married her off. But we're calling her an Almana, meaning we're saying that it's going to be a good Kiddushin. You know what happened? She was married through Yiyud. So she sold her once, and then Yiyud was done, and then she became an Almana. She came back to him. Now he could sell her again because he never married her after the first time. Yes. What do you mean? Yiyud is married. There's no halacha. I mean, not everybody holds that once you sell her, you can't marry off. I'm sorry. There's a machlokes. But if you hold that there's yesh ishus acher shivchus, if you hold that the cell that he sold her was not a marriage. But what do you mean it is a marriage? Because didn't we say
The original.
the original kesef is kesef kedushin? The more about leave it Rabbi Yossi by Yehuda, the Amar Mois Harishon is Slav the kedushin itnu. Rabbi Yossi by Yehuda said the first Mois were not the kedushin itnu. Rather, what is the kesef kedushin? The fact that she still owes her Adain work, and he's saying you don't have to work for me anymore. That's the kesef kedushin. That's her marrying herself off, and therefore she could be an almana with a proper marriage. Yet her father could still sell her afterwards.
That's condition or that's Mitzvah?
Kedushin. Okay, Gavaldik, we'll stop here. Chaim, so you had a Maisa about swapping names.
About about something else. Yeah.
In order to get the truth out.
No, Hetzi. I think it's youth are supposed to be now Gimel or something like that.
Let's go.
The kids, so there was a Gvir that lived. It went to Posen, right? And the Yerushalayim eigentlich went mit Lenet. Okay, it's wherever wir gewohnt. So you took my Zambab and sehr krank. Dann ich kann sagen, ich meine, da scheint mal nach Schule. Und er gebeten, das war mein eigener Song.
That was an already, no?
Yeah.
So you asked him.
Okay. Asked him if I can share some Tabi as on stone for them. Yes.
That's Gavaldik. Go to the Rebbe to tell your father the misnagid to the tavern. Oh, this is good. I already like this story.
Yes, and but he didn't. It's in Stuttgart's team. I believe he would be here all day. So the end of young had gesagt, dass bis dahin 16, was Schirr, wird unheimlich den Wintermantel verzeihen gebucht. Wow, he's going to give him a and as he should get through to his father. Gets it? Okay. As I sag, Thomas, aber es ist gern, da muss die gibt's eine Masse, das vergessen. Doch, warum sie?
The book we're getting gold.
No, verkehrt. Shlomo Eiger didn't write it to his father. So doch, this looks up. Then it's a bit what I can forget. I got to shut down. It's like such a problem is. Этому да, это видно, может быть, дальше. Посуда, Басрецкий, русский посуда.
He wrote the album.
He wrote the album. Sure. It's actually.
That's why I got back to write it.
The kids, so, Mamsha, his father sent him back a letter that his Malauti Bas, Suda Basretsky, and then now nice. He then checked it out. Yes? So he goes right back to the which was no. It gives us some solution. About right away, as right away was done. It's the Lauti Bas, Rifki Basura, Fernandez.
I'll fix it. I'll tell you a story about Eli Olbaum. You know who Eli Olbaum is?
Eli Olbaum from Queens?
He's a Mechitten. No, he's a Mechitten with 30 Samuels, and he married Devorah Wolf, Yossi and Baruch Wolf's sister.
Yes.
So when he was in Philadelphia, our principal always sided with the teachers, even when the teachers was wrong. And because of that, we didn't like him so much. So he once wrote on answering the test plus 126, but he didn't write the plus like a guy writes a plus because it's a cross. So he made it like a patach, right? And the teacher marked it like a comment. I'm sorry. So the teacher marked it wrong because he said it looks like a minus. But he said, "Come on, it's not a minus. You see that? It's a plus." But he said, "No, it looks like a minus." So he goes to the principal, knowing the principal is always inside the teacher. He tells the principal, "Doesn't this look like a minus?" So the principal said, "No, it looks like a plus." He said, "Really? Come with me right now and tell the teacher."
Brilliant.